Vote to second column.
Who can this chicken be? Who can this chicken be if they can come?
Council will be in order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councillor Walsh.
Okie dokie.
Councillor Walsh. Present. Councillor Fenton.
Present.
Present. Councillor Perez.
Present.
Present. Councillor Whitfield. Absent. Councillor Govan.
Present.
Present. Councillor Allen.
Present.
Present. Councillor Brown. Absent. Councillor Hurst.
Present.
Present. Councillor Click Bruce.
Present.
Present. Councillor Edwards.
Present.
Present. Councillor Curran.
Present.
Present. Councillor Davila. Absent. Councillor Letterman.
Present. Will council and guests please rise and join us in a moment of silence? Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You can all be seated. This is a special meeting of the Springfield City Council. We're convening to consider and vote on recommendations from the Community Preservation Committee on the expenditure of Community Preservation Act funds. I just want to go over how we plan to handle the order of the meeting. We're going to invite forward the chairman and staff from the Community Preservation Committee. They are going to present a PowerPoint presentation that will demonstrate the recommended funding for each project. We will take questions on each individual project as it is presented, but we will not vote on each individual project as it's presented. At the conclusion of the presentation, if there's no objection to doing so, we will take a vote on all of the items together. One caveat to this is that item 10 is an item concerning the Springfield Preservation Trust. Both myself and Vice President Edwards serve as members of the board of the Springfield Preservation Trust. As such, we will recuse ourselves from the vote on item 10, and Councillor Walsh, as Dean of the City Council, will preside over item 10. Because of that, item 10, both the presentation and the vote will be taken at the conclusion of the meeting after Councillor Edwards and I have departed the chamber. With that, we'll ask for Mr. McCarroll to come forward and Ms. Lee and allow them to begin their presentation on the recommended funding sources.
Oh, good afternoon, councilors. I'm happy to be here. I'm Bob McCarroll, 96 Elliott Street, Chair of the Springfield Community Preservation Committee. This is the 6th year that we've come before you with recommendations, and over those years, you know, CPA has brought more than $10 million into our city that we would not otherwise have had to use for housing, historic resources, and open space and recreational uses. So the first recommendation that we're making is the Abbey Brook Conservation Area expansion. And you should have all received this little by electronic, the booklet that you can follow along with. Otherwise, it's up there on the screen. So the Abbey Brook Conservation Area is up off of Liberty Street. And it is a fairly large area of 75 acres, and this grant will fund the acquisition of approximately 5.3 additional acres. The existing conservation land known as Abbey Brook is in yellow on that map, and the area of acquisition, which is directly along Liberty Street, is in red. This was a request that came out of the Conservation Commission and the Hungry Hill Neighborhood Association and the city's Office of Planning and Economic Development. And we are recommending moving forward with it with $250,000 from fiscal 2023 and $250,000 out of fiscal 2024 money.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Are there any questions from members of the council relative to the Abbey Brook agenda item? Councilor Walsh.
So I can't quite hear you, Council. Well, we're actually, given that you've already approved our budget for 2024, the money is available now. But you're correct. We're recommending $250,000 out of the fiscal year that just closed in June and $250,000 out of the fiscal year that we're currently in for a total of $500,000.
All comes from CPA.
This is all CPA, correct?
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Are there any further questions on Abbey Brook? Councilor Kern, we're on the Abbey Brook project. Seeing no further questions, Mr. McCarroll, please move on.
The Indian Orchard Fire Station redevelopment on Oak Street in Indian Orchard. This is an application from the City of Springfield and the Indian Orchard Citizens Council. I think, as you know, the Indian Orchard Fire Station has been closed for many, many years, and the Indian Orchard Citizen Council is working with the city to convert it into a community center. The city's already committed $1.5 million of ARPA money to go into stabilizing it, and it's a much larger project of $4 million, but we're recommending $250,000 coming out of the historic reserve.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Are there any questions? Councilor Govan.
Thank you very much. I don't have any questions, except that when we go to vote, I would need to recuse myself from this project, and I believe there's one more regarding Myrtle Street Park as the president of the Indian Orchard Citizens Council.
Thank you, Councilor Govan. With that being the case, we will take items 2 and 8 separately as well. Are there any questions on the fire station project? Councilor Walsh?
No questions, but I'm thrilled that they're finally finding a use for it. I mean, that's been vacant for years.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, Mr. Chairman.
All right, the next project is the Historic Homes Restoration Program, which occurs in all of the local historic districts across the city. That's Quadrangle Mattoon Street, Forest Park Heights, McKnight, Maple Hill, Lower Maple, Ridgewood, and Colony Hills. This is a program that the City Council first approved several years ago, and it provides grants of up to $30,000 for exterior repair of historic homes. It's administered by the Community Preservation Committee. We will hold a lottery to choose who are the participants, and we are recommending $250,000. Part of that will come from the undesignated reserve, and part of it will come from the historic reserve.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Are there any questions on this project?
Can anybody in the historic district apply to be in the lottery?
Councilor Walsh, if you could speak into the microphone.
Oh, sorry. Can anybody in the historic district apply to be in the lottery?
So this is limited to owner-occupied homes within any of the historic districts. Anyone who qualifies that can apply. And in fact, we had at the last lottery almost 200 applicants, and they will be rolled over into the next lottery, assuming City Council approves this recommendation. But given the needs of the houses, and the fact that no one gets more than 30,000, it means that we can help 8 to 10 homeowners every cycle.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Are there any further questions? Seeing none. Mr. Chairman.
All right, the next project recommendation is the gun block building restoration at the corner of State and Walnut Street. This is one of the oldest commercial buildings left in the city. It has been in a deteriorated state for some time. CPA money went into this building to help stabilize it when it was owned by Develop Springfield. Develop Springfield has since sold it to the owner of the abutting building, which you can't see, but it is in the left of it is on the right of the photograph, and he intends to renovate the building with apartments upstairs and a coffee shop and laundry facility on the ground floor, and we are recommending $250,000 from the undesignated reserve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Next.
The next recommendation is Angelina Park up in East Springfield at Page Boulevard and Curve Street. The East Springfield Neighborhood Council was the applicant, and they will be working with the Department of Parks, Buildings, and Recreational Management. Angelina received back in 2019 $100,000 of CPA money to rebuild the deteriorated basketball court, and this year the funding would include some new playscape elements, a connector path, wheelchair accessible picnic tables, and of course it includes also the project design and site preparation, and we're recommending $250,000 from the Recreation Reserve.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Next.
The next is Kilroy House Exterior Restoration Phase 3. This is a unusual Mission Revival style building that's part of the museum complex. And the museums have been working with CPA over the last couple years to renovate it. In the past, City Council has approved money to repair the roof and then to help start repairing the stucco and painting it. And this phase is to finish repairing the stucco, finish the painting, and restoring the windows. And it is a recommendation of $250,000 from the undesignated reserve.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Next.
The next is Alden Street Park improvements. This is a small park that's right by the General Edwards Bridge, and it's in the Upper Hill neighborhood. The Springfield Conservation and Nature Stewardship Group, SCANS, approached this in combination with the park folks and want to expand recreational opportunities at this location. It will include a fishing pier, benches, picnic tables, trash cans, and a walkway. And we are recommending $250,000 from the undesignated reserve.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Are there any questions?
I just have a general question. Who
Councilor
does all the construction?
Well, the park department has several firms, I believe, under agreement to do the design for parks. So that will be the first step, to actually design it, do the specs. And then I believe they go out for bid. I think there is someone from Parks on this meeting via Zoom, and they may be able to clarify it if I'm not correct, but I would assume that it goes out for bid.
there anybody from Parks on the Zoom?
Counselor Walsh, there is somebody from Parks on the Zoom. Ms. Walsh, the floor is yours.
Sorry, Laura.
Thank you. You're okay. Thank you, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Walsh, Senior Parks Project Manager for the city's Park Department. And that is correct. All of the park projects would have a design component that would either be with our on-call designers, or there would be a bid for designer services to select the qualified firm. They would help us prepare the construction documents, and then the project would go out for a public bid for construction through the Office of Procurement.
And is that for all the CPA projects?
I'm not sure about the other applicants, but that is the process for all of the Park Department projects.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Counselor.
Thank you for the question.
Madam Clerk, can you please recognize Counselor Whitfield?
Counselor Whitfield.
Hi, Tracy. Am I in your seat? Sorry. I couldn't see. Yeah. Oh, no, I'll move down one because you won't be able to see.
Were you able to record her, Counselor? Madam Clerk?
Present.
Okay. Are there any further questions on the Alden Street park improvement? Seeing none, without objection, next project.
The next recommendation is the Myrtle Street Park enhancements on Main Street in Indian Orchard. And once again, this is a project coming from the Indian Orchard Citizens Council in partnership with the Department of Parks, Buildings, and Recreational Management. It's to design and construct a walking path, exercise equipment, and game tables. And the total project cost is $249,554, and it's coming from a combination of recreation reserves and undesignated reserves.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Are there any questions on the Myrtle Street Park project? Seeing none, next project.
The next recommendation is the Kavanaugh Building reuse at 443 State Street. This is the conversion of the vacant former Kavanaugh storefront building into mixed use, a project consisting of 35 affordable apartments and office space. It's an $8 million plus project, and the CPA recommendation is $210,000 to come from the housing reserve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any questions on the Kavanaugh Building project? Councilor Kern.
How big are the apartments in that project, square footage wise? Is it going to be 35 built?
I do not know the square footage of the individual units.
Of the units?
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know off the top of my head.
And there's going to be 35 of them?
Correct.
Yeah. And they're going to be rented, it's my understanding from our last meeting when we approved, how much in ARPA funds are allocated to this project, do you know?
Say that again?
How much in ARPA funds are allocated?
And that I wouldn't know either,
Around
other
2
than
million?
saying I know that there are ARPA funds.
Yeah.
We haven't voted yet.
Has there been any opposition, particularly from Commerce High School or anyone from Commerce High School, in regards to the fact that the tenants will be members, clients of the Mental Health Association, individuals that are struggling with alcohol use, heroin use, fentanyl addiction? Has there been any conversation with Commerce High? I mean, this project is basically on the front lawn of Commerce High. And when we spoke with the developer last time, he said he was in the process of developing a security plan. I haven't heard much more about it, but I would think when we're putting a at-risk group, basically again on the next door neighbor to one of our premier high schools here in Springfield, that there'd be some conversation. Could you shed any light on that, if you knew anything about that, or and if you heard anything about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, there's certainly, we, the Community Preservation Committee, have not received any feedback in opposition into our portion of the plan. I do not know whether people have voiced concerns to other agencies that are funding it. And as you can see, we're a very small funder of this.
It's 200,000, is it?
210,000.
That's a sizable chunk of money.
Yeah.
But I understand, you're not part of that aspect of the project. I do catch that. Is there time to comment, or this would be a time for to make a comment as a counselor, or would that be?
Yeah, no, this is the appropriate time to comment, question, and also, I don't know if there's a representative. There are some attendees via Zoom who are the applicants. So I don't know if there's an applicant on the line for this project.
So if I could just make a
But
comment.
the floor
Yeah,
remains yours, Councilor Curran.
Not this project in particular, but just in general. The city council and certainly the city of Springfield, we need to hold the feet of so many developers, especially the Boston developers, to the fire and really demand quality housing, as we all believe that housing is a human right. We have too many times let housing projects, like the Oakland Street project in particular, go by the council. And these developers are building these apartments, which are essentially efficiencies at 275 square feet. I mean, that's the size of a closet. That's the size of a hotel room. And they're going to be getting a lot of money for these apartments because housing is in demand. So I would suggest to my fellow colleagues to contemplate a minimum for new construction for these apartments of 600 square feet. I believe that the city of Boston has a 450 square foot minimum. So the fact that this would be less than 500 and 600 square feet, to me, is something that I'm not enthusiastic about. Secondarily, the fact that this will be a complex that is going to house people with challenges in mental health. And I worked as a former prosecutor, I worked as a defense attorney. I understand the recovery community, but you're going to have individuals with severe mental health problems, severe alcohol problems, severe drug problems. And again, they're going to essentially be on the front lawn of Commerce High. I don't think that would happen if it was Long Meadow High School, Wilbraham High School, East Long Meadow High School. So why should we, embrace a development with that kind of potential for conflict here in Springfield? Third, I do think, this being the Historic Society, there are other reuses for this. For years, I've spoken to Representative Swan, and he always had a vision for a Civil War freedom trail, where tourists can come to Springfield and see where did Frederick Douglass, where did John Brown, where was the Springfield Armory, where were these stops, where was the Underground Railroad with Harriet Tubman coming through Springfield. The Kavanaugh location would be perfect for such a thing. It has a parking lot, it has a great sizable footprint, and those are the kind of ideas that I would expect from the Historic Preservation Committee. That would be a great starting point for Springfield Civil War Freedom Trail, the Kavanaugh building right across the street from the Armory. But I do have reservations about the location of the project. I think it's too close to Commerce High. I do have reservations of the size of the apartments, but that's not specific to this development. This is all developers. We really need to get tough and demand that if we're going to provide taxpayer dollars to these developments, they have to be suitable housing. Third, I just wish there was more communication with the high school. So for those reasons, I would not be inclined to vote for the $200,000. So I would put this to committee, but we could hear from the proponents as well.
Thank you, Councilor Curran. We're going to go to Councilor Whitfield, but first, Madam Clerk, can you please recognize Councilor Davila?
Councilor Davila?
Present.
Present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. This project came before the City Council and Subcommittee a while back when they were asking for the MHA apartments and things like that. As we know, Springfield has a large mental health problem, and what I do know is Donald Mitchell, the owner, in fact, did have a conversation with the principal at Commerce, but we know how the principals rotate. They were going to form a partnership on giving back to the community, because as we know, the youth in the community have mental health issues as well, and could benefit from the services. No,
I I'm
You
sorry,
can't hear me?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
This is the first time you ever heard that.
Very first. Sorry. When Donald Mitchell brought this project into subcommittee, we did bring up that same issue about the tenants and also would there be a partnership with Commerce High School? Because as we know, there are youth in the community that also have mental health problems. And he was in conversation with the principal at Commerce High and they were forming a partnership. However, we know principals, assistant principals rotate rapidly. And so he is going to form that partnership again. But also, I think officers are in the high schools too, the Quebec team? Yeah, Quebec team are in the high schools to make sure that there's no safety issues going on with the students. And I think that we're a little bit past the point of that. And I think that MHA would be a great partner for the youth with mental health issues that may arise at Commerce. And, you know, they will have their own security at the location to mitigate like things like what you're talking about happening. But as we know, we have a huge mental health crisis in the city of Springfield. And I do hear you about it being so close to the high school, but they will have security. MHA has a great reputation with their client. And so I wouldn't want to have them not be able to obtain these fundings because of those type of issues. Because if you can repeat what the funds would be used for, please.
Well, it's a portion of the total project cost, and it's $210,000 of CPA money for a project that's $8,500,000.
And they
So-
also.
Yeah, so
okay,
other
thank
than
you.
to say
I
it's
appreciate it.
part of the project.
So it's a small amount for this big project. They also were awarded the Build Better Springfield program. That's ARPA funds run by Economic Development Team. So I know that they were vetted through that process as well. But we did have in-depth conversations because we had the same concerns as you, Councilor Curran. But I don't think that, like, there's a lot of projects that I would have questioned. But do we want to hold this project? It's a minority-owned project. And a lot of times we don't question some of the projects that's not minority owned, and folks that are not from the city of Springfield. Donald Mitchell happens to be from the city of Springfield, lives in the city of Springfield, has been a good steward in the city of Springfield. And do we want to not approve his project? And he is from here, so he would definitely be a good steward to the city of Springfield. So I'm going to approve the $210,000, but I just did want to give you that feedback that he has been in conversation with Commerce and plan on talking to the new principal as well.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Walsh, just one moment because I have a few folks in the queue, and I'm going to come back to you. Councilor Govan?
Thank you, Mr. President. And I heard Councilor Curran and I heard Councilor Whitfield, and I remember having this conversation at the city council meeting regarding that property, regarding the potential risks that may arise. And I do remember that I don't know that we talked to MHA, but I know that MHA has a history of serving people with mental illness and substance use issues. And when I think about if I would rather have someone living like that next to a high school, I would rather have them be supervised, like the Mental Health Association is doing. They're supervising the residents that are living there. And I believe it's a transitional housing. So people get there, they might stay there. I don't know if this is that kind of project, but historically, Mental Health Association and other agencies like that do have those things. I really like what Councilor Curran said regarding the minimum square foot requirement for new housing. I think that's a great idea. And maybe Councilor Curran, we can talk about putting an ordinance together to make that happen in our city, because I agree with you that, apartments should be a suitable size for people to live in. However, these apartments, I think, are like temporary. So people go there, they get treatment, and then they move on possibly. I'm not sure exactly, but I imagine that's what it might sound like. And I really like that the developers are looking into a partnership with the High School of Commerce. And I'm hoping all the other neighborhood even stick across the street, right? You're right, Council Curran, that in East Long Meadow, this wouldn't happen. And what happens is that East Long Meadow sends us their people who are homeless. They're people who have mental health issues because they don't provide those services in that city for whatever reason. They might, but generally, from what my experience as a mental health clinician, I've seen people come from different areas, Long Meadow, East Long Meadow, Ludlow, Wilbraham, coming into Springfield to get services, to get housing because they're homeless. So that might be another conversation that we might want to have about maybe having those towns and cities possibly, partake in some of the cost that produces, but that might be another conversation. And again, I think this is a great project, and I really love to see. I keep driving by it and I say, when are they going to start? When are they going to start? I'm glad that the CPA is able to help them with this project, and I'm hoping that it's going to start and be completed soon. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Govan. Councilor Walsh, followed by Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I agree with Councilor Govan. I think Councilor Curran has put together some great ideas, but I think this project is pretty far gone. They had a groundbreaking a week ago, and representatives from STIC and the schools were present. So I think there's a relationship there with the people that you were concerned about, and I think that's a good sign that they were there to support the project. I think it's too late in the game not to help them.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Councilor Hurst.
Yeah, I think folks have pretty much touched upon what it was that I was going to say. In summary, the horse is already out the barn, and at this point in time, all we would be doing is hindering the project. It's not as though at this point in time we can stop development of what is already underway, and so it seems to me that we ought to provide whatever assistance we can to make sure that this dilapidated building that has been, not occupied for a long period of time gets back on the tax rolls and actually looks like something that we all would be proud of. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Are there any further questions, comments, or discussion on this agenda item? Councilor Curran.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I appreciate all the comments regarding the building. I guess one aspect that we could be constructive at this point, if my fellow councilors think that the project is going to go forward anyway, is at least we have a policy now that in Springfield, the school students have to walk to school. I mean, is the security plan, that we can have a defined security plan, especially for those walkers, because you're going to have 500-600 Commerce High School students walking by this facility, and it's not a facility like Mill Street. This is residential housing, so individuals who have alcohol addiction, drug addiction, they're not confined to the rooms. They can walk outside the building anytime they want. But that there's a security plan in place for the children that are walking by. I mean, if that is not in place already, for that reason, I don't know if it's constructive to move it to committee to make sure that's happened, but if Councilor Whitfield, you were in the committee meetings, if you feel that's there already, what would be your suggestion?
Well,
Thank you, Councilor Curran. Councilor Whitfield, you're welcome to the floor if you would like it.
oh, sure. Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we did discuss all this in subcommittee meeting, Councilor Curran, and they will have top-notch security like MHA normally does with any of its facilities. So I think it's like 24-hour security. It is residential housing. It's not a transitional program, but it's a supportive program. So everyone there is not just going to be addicted to some type of substance. To regular folks that have other mental health challenges will also be staying there. And so we also don't want to stigmatize those that, have had addiction problems and just assume that they're going to go out and hurt someone or do something to a child, or, we don't want to put that precedence out there. We want to pray that that never happens, but it is a reputable organization. And we kind of did do our due diligence on all the questions that you're asking, and I feel comfortable with it moving forward. This is just another supportive pot of funds that they need to get the project to the finish line, but I certainly wouldn't want folks with mental illness, mental health challenges to think that city council don't trust that they can change and they can do better and grow, and because that puts them right back in the same place that they were before, struggling, and maybe even forcing them back into addiction. And like I said, not everyone in that facility will have addiction problems or previous addiction problems.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Curran?
Yeah, and I completely agree with the support of the mental health community and recovery community. It's just my objection is with the location right next door to Commerce High.
I understand.
So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion or questions on this particular item? Just a reminder to councilors, so the way we're handling this, so as to avoid 17 roll call votes, is we're taking the presentation now and having the discussion and debate now. So that was the discussion and debate, perfectly appropriate. At the conclusion, what we'll do is we'll take a motion for items that are, unopposed. So we'll take as many as we can together. Anything that folks are looking to refer to committee, do not feel comfortable with voting on as a group, or need to be recused, at that time, we'll separate those out. So I just want to make sure folks know that that's where we are in the process. Seeing no further discussion on the Kavanaugh building item, we'll move to the next item, which will be the D'Amour Museum for the aforementioned explanation. Item 10 will be taken at the end of the meeting due to recusals. Mr. McCarroll.
Thank you. So the D'Amour Art Museum is now in their second phase of doing work. City Council approved CPA money to help restore their monumental doors on the quadrangle a couple years ago, and to do window replacement on their Chestnut Street facade. And this is continuing to do work, which is cleaning the other elevations of the museum and doing in-kind window replacement. And it is a recommendation of $150,000 from the undesignated reserve.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a question about, I'm sorry I was a little bit late, but how many applications came in altogether?
I think that there were about 26 applications.
26?
And there are 17 recommendations before you.
Okay, for the ones that didn't make it, can we get copies of those? Because I just want to read the application, because I feel like every single year the museum gets funded. And I'm not saying that it's not needed or not warranted, but I'm pretty sure that there are other projects that could also benefit. And I'm not against anything that happens at the museum. I think it's a great location in the city of Springfield for the residents of the city of Springfield. But I feel like every year we're approving something for the museum, and I would like some of these probably not so popular locations to also be approved. So I would just like to see the ones that didn't make it to the recommendation phase, just so we could see. Sure, Karen, I will. Yes. Right on our website. Oh, sorry.
Ms. Lee, if you could join us at the public podium and speak directly into the microphone.
Or Bob could say it.
Thank
Just
you.
want to let you know that all the applications are on our city webpage, and you can click it on and read what they are.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
I appreciate that. I will take
Sorry,
a look.
Mr. President.
All is forgiven. Mr. Chairman. Oh, Councilor Whitfield,
So,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
you still
that
have the
was
floor.
just my, I really appreciate what we're doing for the museum, but they do get a hefty amount of money from other endowments and things like that. And I would just like to see some of the improvements go to those that don't, And I support this space being renovated, but I still would like to see folks that don't have the opportunity to get endowments and other fundings, like the museum, to have the opportunity to use these CPA funds. Not saying that some of them are not in here, but I see the same old players every year, and I would just like to see some new players as well. There are some new players, but I would like to see more new players. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. To follow up on that, are applications sometimes denied because they're not filled out properly? Is that an issue?
That's not so much of an issue. I mean, this year, there were, I'm going to say, close to twice as many, there were requests for twice as much money as we have to recommend to you. So obviously, we may need to make some decisions. There are also sometimes projects that come to us that either the entire project or a portion of the project is not CPA eligible, and we're not going to recommend it. Have been times that we've just gotten incomplete, meaning half-thought-out proposals that we don't feel comfortable recommending to you. In fact, there was a time several years ago that we did not recommend all the projects that we could have, because normally we run out of money before we run out of projects. That year, we ran out of projects that we felt comfortable in recommending to you before we ran out of money.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Are there any further questions or comments relative to the Damore Museum award? Councilor Curran?
I just had a question. And again, this is, this whole CPA project is great because we are giving some worthy candidates a lot of money. And the Damore Fine Arts, that's the building next to the library, right? Am I correct? Fine Arts Museum? The brick?
No,
Which
the
one's
Fine
that?
Arts Museum is on Chestnut, well, it's near the library,
Yeah.
but it's actually on Chestnut Street. If you're driving up Chestnut from State Street, you first go by Christ Church Cathedral, and then then you're at the museum, the Fine Arts Museum.
And would you know this, and I don't want to give a pop quiz here, but like how many Springfield residents are on the board of this, the Damore Fine Arts Museum? They'll be getting the Springfield taxpayers.
Have no idea.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but that's another issue the city council needs to be looking at, because we have so many boards here in the city that are just appointed and filled by residents who are living in the suburbs. And it's great to have people living in the suburbs, Wilbraham and Longmeadow, interested into the fine arts culture here in Springfield. But when they are receiving city funds, it is heartening to know that there is a city resident on these boards to keep an eye on these city funds. And I think we as a council really have to go through these nonprofit agencies that are receiving tax breaks and as well as millions of dollars in city funds, to make sure that there are city residents on these boards to be stewards of taxpayer dollars, such as this. This comes from our residents' tax bill, that they, again, can be the eyes and ears of the city council as well. So I just want to make that note that question was asked when you talk to the folks at the Damore Museum.
And they may very well be one of the Zoom attendees on today's meeting, and they could answer that. I cannot.
It's just a concern. So, but thank you, and it's a worthy allocation of funds, I believe.
Thank you, Councilor Kern. I do see a representative of the museums is on. Would you like to hear from them?
Yeah, if they wish to, yeah.
All right. I see Ms. Hart is on.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you for having us. I'm also here with Sean Mullett, our facilities director, and I'm the grants manager. I unfortunately can't speak to where each trustee lives. I wish I had that information ready to go, but I'm happy to look into that and get it back to you. But I do know there is a very heavy presence of trustees who work in Springfield. Again, I don't know their personal residence off the top of my head, but there's a great representation of businesses in Springfield that sit on the board.
Thank you, Ms. Hart. Are there any further questions or comments on the Damore item?
Nothing further. Thank you so much.
Seeing none.
Thank you.
Mr. McCarroll, next.
The next recommendation is the Gemini Townhomes at Central and Morris Street. This is a project that was recommended for some funding last year, which City Council approved, and they have requested additional funding, and we have recommended $52,800 from the housing reserve and $43,200 from the undesignated reserve. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, this is going to be building new owner-occupied, affordable townhomes down along Central Street and Morris Street.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Are there any questions on the Gemini Award? Seeing none. Next project.
The next one is Daniel's New Bethel Church of God in Christ at 1321 Dwight Street. And we are recommending $80,000 from undesignated reserves for restoration of 14 non-religious windows and repair of railings and masonry work, including the chimney.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Are there any questions on the New Bethel Award? Seeing none. Next project.
The next one is Trinity United Methodist Church at 361 Sumner Avenue. It is for repair and restoration of non-religious stained glass windows facing the public way, and the recommendation is $65,000 from the undesignated reserve.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Councilor Hurst.
I have the same question for this project as I did the last. Help me understand the non-religious windows. How's that possible? What does that mean?
So the windows have either a geometric pattern, they have a floral pattern, they have images of people that are not religious figures. So for example, in the Trinity Sanctuary, there is a stained glass window of Abraham Lincoln. And I forget the list of them, but they have numerous stained glass windows that have personages of history that are not religious persons.
So if they're non-religious, does that mean they can be funded? Is that why you say non-religious?
Absolutely. The committee is well aware of the issue of separation of church and state. So we will not participate in work that deals with religious imagery or iconography or symbolism. So if
so that means you can fund any historic church. Is that accurate? That has non-religious components to it. And I'd imagine that might incorporate just about everything that doesn't have a religious symbol in it, correct?
Well, correct. I mean, clearly, the first thing is they have to be either a building that's on the State Register of Historic Places or have been found by the local historical commission to be of importance to the city because of architecture, history, or culture. So it's not every place of worship can come and get CPA money, but certainly if you are a historic resource as defined by the law, you're eligible to apply.
Interesting. That's actually good to know because I know a lot of churches who oftentimes need a level of rehab and cannot necessarily access funding. And this is an excellent opportunity for them to do so as long as they have some sort of historic designation. And it also might be nice to be able to identify, what churches might fit these qualifications and then let them know so that they can be privy to the CPA funding available. So good to know, and thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Councilor Whitfield, followed by Councilor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is, some of these projects have to go through like city departments and things like that. Do the churches' applications go through
No.
a city department?
No.
Or a neighborhood council?
So things like the Kavanaugh Building or the Gemini Building or the museums or these churches, these are coming from the private owners of those buildings.
private.
They're not coming through a a city department.
Or neighborhood council?
No, some of them come in with letters of support from their neighborhood council. We, the committee, we require that every applicant notify their neighborhood council that they're applying for CPA money, and we encourage them, if they can, to get a letter of support, but we require proof that they've at least communicated to their neighborhood council the fact that they're applying.
Oh, thank you for that clarification. And then my final question is, do you all still have those information sessions or training sessions on when the application process opens up and how to fill them out? I remember going to one a couple years ago, and it was real helpful. So I'm just wondering if you still do that.
We have indeed continued to do that, and we will do it again this funding cycle. Hold on a second. We have established February 29th as the deadline for applications, and we will either in late January or early February be holding another one of our workshops.
Thank you, because they were really helpful. I know that I brought quite a few folks, and they may not have been ready that year, but it helped them to get ready for the future. So thank you for bringing that back.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to speak to this question about the separation of church and state and some of the restrictions that exist with respect to the CPC and funding projects that border on religion. And last cycle, we funded the renovation of some stained glass windows for South Congregational Church on Maple Street. And
No,
after that,
Christ Church Cathedral.
Christ Church Cathedral. Sorry about that, Bob. And after that vote, I was speaking with an attorney colleague of mine who is the chair of a CPC in another community. And he was talking to me about the fact that in their community, they received a request for information to itemize all of the expenses that had been provided through the CPC to religious organizations, and a complete description of what that work was. And this is an organization sending that audit letter that was based out of Washington, D.C., with the interest of, I think the organization's called something like Center for the Separation of Church and State. And so they were basically fishing through a variety of CPCs to see if they could find municipalities that were spending money on religious uses. And in this particular place, they had not. But my concern was if we ever got such an audit letter, that for the stained glass windows at the cathedral that Bob just referenced, that we could have an issue. So Bob looked into it, I looked into it, the law department looked into it, and based on the fact that those stained glass windows did not have religious images, we were comfortable with it. So when I heard Bob say earlier, non-religious windows, thank you, Bob, for clarifying that. I feel like you were talking to me to let me know that we're in the clear on this. And I appreciate all the other comments that were made on this, including Councilor Hurst's. It doesn't mean that we can't appropriate to religious organizations. It just means that if we're going to do it, it can't have a religious symbol in the work that we're doing. So I wanted to thank Bob for his work on that and just shed a little bit more light on why we're being hyper specific about non-religious windows at the church on Sumner Ave. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Fenton. Are there any further questions on the Trinity Church item? Councilor Whitfield.
I just have a question for Bob or Councilor Fenton. Does that mean it could be any church, or does it have to be a historic church?
Bob.
Oh, you have to be a historic resource in order to qualify for CPA assistance. You know, CPA can only be given to open space and recreational uses, community housing, and historic resources. So if you're not a designated historic church, or you haven't been found by the Historical Commission to be historic, you're not eligible. It's just not everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Any further discussion?
No, I just have a comment. It would just seem to me that the CPA funding is probably only part of the cost of the repairs, correct? Would you say? It doesn't cover all the repairs?
So in Trinity has repaired some of the windows on their own.
I've seen the big tractor out there, yeah.
And they may look at this as a phased project because they asked for more money than what we have recommended, and we've recommended less than what they asked for because we wanted to get to other projects as well, and knowing that window repair can be done in phases, this is something. So I do not know to the degree that they are coming up with their own money for this phase.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Is there any further questions or discussion on Trinity? Seeing none, next project.
The next recommendation is Immaculate Conception Church at 25 Parker Street in Indian Orchard, and this is $45,000 from the undesignated reserve for repair and painting of the exterior of the building.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Are there any questions or deliberation on Immaculate Conception? Seeing none, next project.
Community Music School of Springfield at 127 State Street. This is to make improvements to the exterior of the building in terms of refinishing the decorative entrances, repairing the masonry, and removing historically inappropriate material, $14,740 from the undesignated reserve.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. Are there any questions on the Community Music School? Seeing none, final project.
Brian's house at 113, 115 Mill Street. It is porch repair. This is a residential group home, and we're recommending $3,900 from the undesignated reserve to help fix the porch.
Are there any questions on the Michael J. Diaz Foundation? Councilor Whitfield.
It's really not on this project, but you said historic, community housing. What was the other ones?
Open space and
Open space
recreation.
and
That's
recreation.
it.
What about low-income housing? I thought,
Well, that's community housing.
oh, that's part of community housing?
So the community housing, for the purposes of CPA, is housing for folks who make less than 100% of metropolitan median income. So it's the whole gamut of low-income housing, depending on how low a community wants to go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Any further questions or deliberation on this final project, the Michael J. Diaz Foundation? Seeing none, that brings us to the conclusion of the project presentations, with the exception of Project 10, which we'll cover shortly. And so at this time, as I indicated at the beginning of the meeting, the plan is to take a series of roll call votes together as opposed to voting on each one individually. But for that reason, we have already identified that items 2, 8, and 10 will be taken separately. And so at this time, are there any projects that councilors wish to pull out from the vote, either for further discussion, referral to committee, or a project that a councilor would not be comfortable with approving? Now would be the time to ask for that item to be taken separately.
Mr. President,
Councilor Curran.
I'd ask that item 11, item 9, the cabinet furniture building be taken separately.
Item 9 will be taken separately. Are there any further questions? Councilor Fenton.
The Gemini project, I have to abstain on that one. So is that one of the ones that'll be separate?
That will be item 12, which will be taken separately.
Thank you.
Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just wondering if the esteemed colleague, Councilor Curran, could shed some light as to the basis for his request.
I'm assuming that you're referring to Councilor Curran?
Correct.
Yes, so Councilor Davila, that item is going to be taken separately, and at that time, all esteemed colleagues will have the opportunity to speak on the items.
No, I understand that, but he just requested to have it out of committee. I'm just trying to understand. Is that his concern from his previous statements?
Well, Councilor Davila, he hasn't made a motion to committee. He's as a part of the procedural discussion that we're having at this time, he's asked that the item be taken separately. So we're going to take any items that are not being taken separately together and then proceed to discussion and debate on each
I
individual item.
understand that, but why does he want to take it separately? I'm just, I'm just trying to so that I'm clear, that's all.
Councilor Curran, do you wish to extrapolate on why you would like to take that item separately, or would you prefer to do
It's a
so
big word, it's a
during?
quick explanation.
Yeah, it's not my intention to place into committee after hearing Councilor Whitfield. I think there's other funding sources that this project might depend on besides this. But I'm not voting in favor of it, so I'd like the opportunity to vote against it. So that's the reason why I'd like to take it out. Otherwise, I'd have to vote against all the projects. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so I'd like to take this one out. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Davila. Thank you, Councilor Fenton. Are there any further items that councilors wish to pull out prior to our first procedural vote? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve items 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. Is there such a motion? Motion was made by Councilor Edwards. Is there a second? Motion was seconded by Councilor Whitfield. Is there any discussion on approval of the aforementioned items?
Could you give me those numbers again? I'm sorry.
The items are 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. Is there any discussion prior to our vote on approval of the aforementioned items? Seeing no further discussion, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on approval of the CPC recommendations.
On approval of the recommendations, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Govan. Councilor Govan. Away. Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Brown. Absent. Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The recommendations are approved. Let the record reflect, it appears that Councilor Govan has disconnected from the virtual participation. I will let you know if she comes back. At this time, Madam Clerk, please call item 2.
Item 2 is an order approving CPC recommendation to fund the Indian Orchard Fire Station rehab.
Is there any further deliberation or questions on the Indian Orchard Fire Station award? Councilor Whitfield.
I'm sorry, I wasn't here for the fire station. What is the total amount of the project?
Mr. McCarroll.
It is an estimated $4 million project.
And the project is going to be a community center?
Correct. It's going to be community uses, including meeting space, health clinics, art and computer labs, workshops. And there's already been $1.5 million of ARPA money going into the building for stabilization.
Oh, I didn't know about the half. I knew $1 million came from ARPA. Does it say what other fund that came from, or it just says ARPA overall?
All we know is it was $1.5 million of ARPA.
Oh, okay. I'll look into that separately, but no, I think that's a great use of the fire station, and I also think that Indian Orchard deserves a community center, room, health center, and all the uses that you mentioned. But I just wanted to know the total cost, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Are there any further questions or discussion on item 2, the fire station? Seeing none further, Madam Clerk, without objection, please call the roll on approval of the recommendation.
On approval of the recommendation, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan mentioned that she was recused, but she is away. Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown absent. Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The recommendation is approved. Madam Clerk, please call item 8.
Item 8 is an order approving CPC recommendation to fund Myrtle Street Park enhancements.
Is there any further discussion on the Myrtle Street Park Award? Seeing no further discussion, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on approval of item 8, Myrtle Street Park.
On approval of the item, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan. Away, Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown absent. Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The order is approved. Madam Clerk, please call item 9.
Item 9 is an order approving CPC recommendation to fund the Kavanaugh Building reuse.
Is there any further discussion or questions on the Kavanaugh building? Seeing no further discussion, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on approval of item 9, Kavanaugh building recommendation.
On approval of the item, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Abstain.
Abstain, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan. Away, Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown absent. Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Curran.
No.
No, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The recommendation is approved. Madam Clerk, please call item 12.
Item 12 is an order approving CPC recommendation to fund Gemini Townhomes.
Is there any further discussion on the Gemini Townhomes project? Seeing none, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on approval of the recommendation.
On approval of the recommendation, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Abstain.
Abstain, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan. Away. Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown absent. Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The recommendation is approved. Members, that brings us to our final order of business, which will be the presentation and discussion of item 10. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, both myself and Councilor Edwards are conflicted out of item 10 due to our membership on the board of the Springfield Preservation Trust. In accordance with our rules, the longest-serving member of the council, the dean, Councilor Walsh, will preside over this item in our absence. So I will cede the gavel to her at this time. And Madam Clerk, if you can also ensure that the sponsorship of this item is updated to Councilor Walsh as well.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, without further ado, Madam Clerk, please call item 10.
Item 10 is an order approving CPC recommendation to fund 7 to 9 Stockbridge Street rehabilitation.
Did you wish to speak on the issue?
Yes, my name is Karen Lee. I'm the CPA administrator for the committee, and my address is 18 Lawn Street in Springfield. One quick question to address Councilor Whitfield. The applications, all 27 applications that were submitted, were put on our website so the public could actually look at all of the applications. Once the committee recommended the 17 that you have, I pulled down the ones that weren't recommended. So if you would like any of the previous applications, just contact me and I'll forward that to you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I am presenting this application since the chair of the committee is the Springfield Preservation Trust representative on the CPA committee. Okay, so 79 Stockbridge Street rehabilitation. This is in the Metro Centre downtown. The funding is for stabilization of the building, masonry, windows, doors, and painting. The building, also known as the Gunther and Handel Block, is the third oldest building in downtown Springfield, after Old First Church and the Byers Block. Built in 1845, it had been a long-time Gunther and Handel's Deli before being renovated in 1977 by Peter Zorzi of Studio One Architects. The Springfield Preservation Trust plans to rehabilitate the building to house the SPT offices and 2 additional rental units. The proposal meets 4 of the CPC historic preservation priorities in our community preservation plan. Rehabilitation of this historic resource will preserve and enhance the essential historic character of downtown Springfield. The project cost is $511,520, and the CPA request is $150,920. Recommendation is coming out of the undesignated reserve. And we do have a representative of the trust if you have additional questions.
Any discussion from members of the council? Councilor Allen?
Yes, Karen, could you give the official address of this?
Yes, it's 7-9 Stockbridge Street.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call item 10.
On approving the recommendation, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan. Away. Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown absent. Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
He had to abstain.
Abstain, Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman, abstain.
Yes. Votes are sufficient. The item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your hard work. Do we have to adjourn the meeting?